Hey. Welcome back to Moving with Meaning, the podcast, where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. I know it is the holidays, and I wrestled with a few topics I have in me that would be thoughtful, and I settled on something deeply personal to me: anxiety. I suffer from PTSD and panic disorder, and for more than half my life, I have been unsuccessfully attempting to manage it. Until now, that is. But let's not get too deep. So you know how we do. Let's reveal the word for today's episode. Here we go. The word of the day is, drumroll please, serenity. There are so many synonyms this word describes. My very first tattoo is of the Chinese word peaceful. I think even those forced in some of the most chaotic environments desire a state of calm and peace. In today's episode, I'm going to get real raw in my evolution with anxiety. This has so many levels. I didn't know or put much thought into it until I actually spoke on it in my previous podcast. I knew then, girl, you've been holding it together pretty darn good. But also, damn, ain't you tired yet? You may saying, why such a poo-poo topic during this time of year? Listen, there is no season or event or time of day that folks don't experience triggers. I want to maintain awareness of these feelings and thoughts, especially during this time of year. I promise you'll crack a smile or two. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. I suppose I should start at the beginning. There are 4 major sources from which anxiety is born from, and these are the ones that I researched and kind of just summarized into that. So obviously I'm not like a psychiatrist or anyone that has a degree or has a study in this field, so feel free to correct me. But they are hereditary, development and personality, perception of threats, and brain chemistry. Now, at first glance, all of that may seem and come across as academia, but if you actually entertain them, you will have an aha moment, like I did. Of course, my therapist really helped all of this come full circle for me, but we'll get there. In regards to hereditary, I had no idea that these traits could be passed down. I didn't consider them genetic. And once you figure something like that out, you start to go back in time and revisit various moments with your family members. For me, it was my mother and my father. I think both of them had a lot of tension between them. And, that's what typically happens with not only marriage, but the time when you're dating before the marriage and things like that. And I think all of that manifested into anxiety. And that is not my story to tell. Just that I remember recalling certain arguments that sounded quite silly to me. But then again, I didn't have any background, right? I was a child. And now that I'm an adult and married, I kind of think back on them like, oh, okay, well, maybe not so much. I did learn from that, which was to not argue with my husband in front of my kids or make jabs at each other because we notice it and it has an impact. Now, my anxiety is quite a bit more severe than theirs because of other contributing factors. So what they do to cope doesn't necessarily work for me. Now, the next one is brain chemistry, which I don't know much about, but it doesn't apply to me. Now, development and personality and how I perceive threats is what really got me, which is what most of this episode will be about. So we'll start first with personality and development. I'm sure many people who are the eldest or hold a prominent role among their siblings have this expectation to be a role model, caretaker, and in most cases put others' needs before their own. I don't think I need to tell you how much of a self-esteem downer that is. Early on, this wasn't such an impact because I didn't mind being the big sister. It was cool as kids. When the dynamics changed from support and tutelage to stern expectation, it felt, stifling. I'm conjuring an analogy of a burning building and you are trapped. You try to go out the door, but the handle is too hot to turn the latch. You try to stamp out the flames, but they just grow larger and spread farther. You know that if you burst out one of those windows, the backdraft was gonna get you. So you sit there while the smoke brings tears to your eyes and your lungs burn as you gasp for air until you fall to your knees. This is the best way I can describe the growing responsibility and mental and emotional strain I had as a child. That's enough to make anyone panic. You know, if you're doing a good job at being all of these things, you would expect some kind of praise or reward. But it was just more. More chores, more responsibility, more punishments, and so on. And you would think that once you hit 18, 21, 25, 30, 40, that you would have served your penance, because that's what it felt like, and some days it still does. But no. I had to make peace, make accommodations, plan events, make jokes, make time, and again, etc. I truly believe that my parents and brother really thought I was superhuman. I'm dead ass. I would hear them give others like a pass on something, and I would say, well, you expect me to do it, and I do it. They respond with, well, you're different. No, I'm not. It became, in my eyes, too much at stake. And when you do that to a child and build onto that with each passing year and milestone, this child never really grows out of that thought process, even as an adult. Yeah, I'm telling you now, as an adult, I know this had to change, and there is no excuse. Just the feelings as a child were incredibly strong. That was development. My personality, though, came as a result of this and other things. I became introverted. I could remember when I was this outgoing little girl looking for fun and meeting new people. I just clammed right up. I didn't want to draw attention to myself, though I still wanted to be seen. It's kind of hard to explain. I wanted to be recognized for something good. Good grades, good behavior, stuff like that. I got this through my athleticism. In 8th grade, I was killing it on the basketball courts and soccer fields. I finally started meeting new friends and getting out of the house more. And then all that changed when my dad got a promotion, which sent us packing to Dallas, Texas. And you know what? I closed right back up. I remember in 10th grade, I wanted to focus on soccer because I really saw basketball as recreational. And I was not willing to put any additional work in to be better and improve on anything. Nothing. It was completely hobby oriented for me now. I told my mom this and she said nope, and that I should play basketball, which I think I purposely tanked every tryout. I ain't gonna lie. I asked later why she opposed me playing soccer, and she said simply because I liked watching you play basketball. Soccer was just too boring. I replied by saying, but I love soccer. I didn't want to play basketball. She just shrugged her shoulders, and, here's the kicker. She hated my brother playing football, but she let him play. I don't really care if she voiced her objections. It wasn't that deep to the point where he just said F it and didn't do it. She went to hit all his games and all that. Sounds like I have a bit of bitterness there, don't you think? So this added up to me not being comfortable being happy, sad, or scared. I became obsessed with controlling my environment. And let's be clear on that. Not controlling people, my environment. So how my body reacted to physical touch or reacted to excitement or fear or embarrassment, all of these what-if situations would pop up, and let's say I made a schedule. And well, that feeds right on into my next source, how I perceive threats. I'm a planner. I like to have order, and when things don't quite go the way I anticipate, I get really agitated because it's disrupting my day or threatening the time I plan to set aside for some me time or dinner, or now I am late for something. I can feel my heart pounding in my chest, nausea building up. I mean, it feels like a heart attack is coming on, And I have to try really hard to soothe myself, which I typically failed at. That's a synopsis of my sources. All right, quick wrap up on that one. When I entered into college, while some folks were thinking about this as this big adventure, I was just ready to get away and live. I mean, that sounds a lot like an adventure, but I guess this was like a breath of fresh air, from the stifling environment I described above. Well, let's stop for a sec, and I want to clarify this. I don't want folks thinking like, dang, what's she complaining about? I'll take her situation over mine anytime. And I think, to be honest with you, that's why a lot of people kind of withhold anxiety, because they think the same thing. Like, what am I complaining about? Other people got it worse than me. So, I mean, like, I'm not going to say nothing because you feel guilty. Well, there are a lot of things my parents taught me that I still continue on to this day. I still reach out to them for advice and help, and they do advise and help. So this isn't me dogging them. I know there is much worse out there. I mean, I remember in one of my previous episodes, I was talking about being raised by broken parents. Let me tell you, I'm a broken parent. And I'm doing the best to improve on what I experienced, and I hope my kids do the same thing. But this is really me explaining from a child's point of view, living with an overprotective mother, a hard-working father, and a strict set of expectations imposed on me as the oldest. Those good intentions they were doing didn't translate to me the way they assumed. And when you are putting a child in a position of high responsibility, the communication needs to be constant, but so should the relief, right? I remember my mom explaining to me that I was the oldest and how much she depended on me to help with my brother. Now, I understood that, but I thought that had an age limit. I get I will always be the big sister, but when does my brother get the same expectations imposed on him that I did? When does his punishments become the same for the same infractions? It's like the justice system. You know how different demographics receive more leniency than others? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, hell, we say everything on here anyway. I'm referring to how Caucasians receive lighter sentences and empathy when dealing with law enforcement as opposed to African Americans and perhaps other cultures, and they could speak on that if they should choose to come on here and do so. I'm just African American. I can only speak for me. Same thing with men receiving higher sentences than women for also the same infractions. Just because you don't or haven't seen it doesn't make it any less true. That always gets me. It's like this awakening moment when these hot mics and hidden videos come through, and it's even more mind-blowing when folks still try to explain that away. This is not even scratching the surface, but my podcast isn't a political one. Anyway, that conversation with my mom didn't happen often, and I could see that when I would complain about these things, she would get annoyed, understandably. Because as a mother myself, that's one less thing I want to do, which is repeat myself. But if I'm imposing this kind of heightened responsibility on my child, they need answers, and I need to fulfill that whether I'm in the mood or not. Think about it. I've been living and breathing for 41 years, and they have been doing that for 8, 14, 16 years. That's not a lot of time to expect them to understand what's going on. And also, kids do need to be kids. Safely, of course, and responsibly, okay? They will make mistakes, but punishing one harsher than the other as some kind of example, that doesn't work. Not in my experience. You know how I know? Because my brother would see me get these punishments and still did the same stuff I did. And he got away with it. And then he did stuff that I never would have done. like have house parties when my parents were out of town. And I'm not ratting him out or anything like that. We all knew. I'm just telling you what happened on here. Okay, so back to me seeing college as a breath of fresh air. I still brought all of that baggage with me. There was a lot of turmoil going on inside of me, and the only way I could cope with it was to drink heavily. It's interesting because I would normally call my case a functioning alcoholic, but my LCDC intern godsister dropped some knowledge on me and said simply, "That does not exist." And she told me this like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But I was like, damn. I literally was one of these people I just spoke about just now, trying to explain away my addiction. I can't wait to get her on here. She is incredibly knowledgeable and has quite a bit to offer. So throughout college, I was drinking and just doing whatever, including my homework. I did lose myself a bit my freshman and sophomore years, but I made a good comeback my last two. Future episodes will be about my pregnancy and the termination of that, losing my virginity, and how I had this strict regimen about choosing boyfriends. Some I knew were temporary, and others I had my heart in. One thing I noticed in college was when I got alcohol poisoning and would vomit, this threw me into a state of panic because to me, I had lost control of my body. And this was a trigger for me. Now, I love my friends back then because they really held me down during those episodes. They rubbed my back. It wasn't like the party stopped, like, oh, this got to interrupt. The party kept on going. It was just they rallied around me, kept talking, kept drinking, kept doing things. But they made sure that they took turns. Some took turns rubbing my back, and saying positive things. But then I would also hear, as I'm going through this stuff, I could hear them joking. And then I would laugh. And then I would fall asleep. So I found that laughter really calmed me down. And I didn't realize that then. I do now. So fast forward to after college where I stopped drinking. Not by choice, mind you. I'll do a different episode because there's more to that than we have time for here. I remember getting my first job. And just 2 months into it, me and my mom got into a terrible argument. I mean, I went out and found an apartment within a week after this. My move-in was the first week of the new year, which was 2 months away at this time. But believe me, if I could have moved in the following week, I would have. So I mention this because you know how you have to set up all the utilities, cable, and internet? I did that and had it all scheduled. Then a week before I move in, the electric company calls me and says, hey, something happened or whatever. We need to delay your setup to a week later. And I'm like, how does that work? Am I supposed to live without lights? This was something completely out of my control. And I couldn't change it. It just was. All I was thinking was I did everything right. How could this happen? Also, I didn't want my parents to criticize me either because, I was leaving. I was going off on my own. We got into this argument. I didn't want this, I told you so. I don't think that they would have done that at all. It just felt that way to me because just under the circumstances of how I left and went off and did these things, okay? A coworker next to me saw my face. That's the thing about being fair-skinned. People can see your feelings because you turn red, you're blushing, you're doing everything to really control your emotions, but it's showing on your face, your color. All this blood is rising to your face and you can see it. She was a sister, calmly asked me to stop working for a minute. I remember trembling so hard just to hold my composure together when I looked at her. And she said, do you want to talk about something? And I just shook my head and said that it was okay. She pressed a bit and she said, because you don't look like it. Well, what happened? And I told her. And I was crying as I was telling her because it just started to come on out. At that point, I was like, let it go. Let it just go ahead, come on out. So she said, okay, that happens, but you still have the apartment, right? And everything else is still scheduled, right? I said, yeah, but, and she stopped me, right? She explained to me something to the effect of that prayer to accept the things you can't change, but grant me the courage to change what I can. That really helped me. Look, she has a calling. I can't believe, I hope she is running her own prayer circle, prayer group, whatever it is, because she's got it, baby. She got it going. Like, I could call her now 20 years later and she will talk to me just the same. And I have. 10 years ago, I did do that when I was going through something with my brother. And she helped me then. Man, people you meet, keep them close. Okay, so now, obviously, I continued to have a career and children, but my anxiety slowly grew more intense. Like, I couldn't get excited. So right before vacations, I would have an attack, or if one of my kids were doing something that they were really excited about, my empathetic self would absorb that and I'd have to find a way to relax. So one example was my daughter was walking in this pageant. This was something minor. This wasn't like a big thing. This was spring break and I had to work. So I put her in like a day camp. And at the end of this day camp, they had the girls kind of do like a little mock pageant thing. But I remember her being really excited about it. And I would drive around all day after I dropped her off because I couldn't calm down. Anyway, she did do great and I was able to make it and all that kind of stuff. But I just had to do something. I also have separation anxiety, and that didn't do too well with consulting because I was traveling during the week, every week. I'd be back on the weekends, as I said before. You guys can listen to my other episode, Pursuit of Happiness, that two-parter. And I was going to give you a little idea of how stressful that traveling was. But there was this moment where I was dealing with an extremely obnoxious coworker. I gave him the what for, but after that conversation, I went and got into the shower, and for some reason, I just cried. Like a baby crying. Like, I don't want to say a manic cry, but I was letting everything out that was held in me I felt like for all my years, from childhood, from everything that I was holding in. It was coming out right then. I remember telling my husband I wanted to go to the hospital because I thought I was crazy. I thought literally I was going crazy. I felt like I had snapped. Not like the TV show Snap, but just like something in me really like broke. Well, he just laid me in bed and sat next to me with the TV on until I fell asleep. Before we go to ooh and on, that was kind, but that was also dismissing my feelings and concerns. Anxiety would rear its ugly head again, and this time, my husband had to take me to the hospital so that I could get medicated. This wasn't anything out of the ordinary. When I go into certain attacks, and if it goes for a certain length of time, I will stay in an attack for literally 10 hours before my body will succumb and finally be like, woo, okay, we're done. And that's an extremely long time to be like that, with heart pumping that hard and all that kind of stuff. But this time, my husband could see that I was struggling, and he didn't want me to keep coming back here to handle this because there had to be a better way. So he went up to the front desk and, told them like, that's great that you guys got her under control and all this other kind of stuff, but can you give us some information? Can someone come out and talk to her? And there was this nurse who came out, and to be honest with you, it had to be at the beginning of her shift or something because she was in a very good mood. And I know people don't want to be bothered, and it's like I'm just trying to get through the day or whatever, but she was really nice, and she explained that I needed to go to a psychiatrist because we have a lot of things going on in life. And then she laughed and said, I'm on Lexapro. So that immediately helped me because she was a healthcare professional who is also dealing with depression or, having to deal with just some kind of imbalance of her emotions. So that helped me a lot. Now, this time, my husband went and found me a psychiatrist whom I am still with till this day. She was the one that diagnosed me with PTSD and panic disorder. And it took a few tries to get on the right medication. And as I've said before, that's hard to keep going because I already didn't want to be on pills, okay? And then this one not working and that one, nope. So I'm at another appointment and I'm looking at my doctor while she's going through the list of medications. And I'm thinking, man, I'm really messed up over here. But no, really, that's how the process works. Everyone's body responds to medicines differently, and you won't know unless you take it. And it's not like the allergy test where you can do like small samples on your body and kind of see, yeah, this is working, this is going to do something. No, you got to take it for like 2 or 3 months and then come back and then reassess. So I am happy to say that I did find medicine that worked, but now I'm no longer on medication, except for my rescue pill. Just in case something pops off and I need some little help coming down. Okay, I'm like, oh, don't take that from me, please. I think it's incredibly important to talk about this because I've had suicidal ideations and been in a severe depressive state where I've had no appetite and get very lethargic. Also, understand, folks with anxiety, and I'm just going to generalize this based off of conversations I've had with others of varying extremes, we don't blame others for the way we are. At least I don't, and they didn't. And the folks that I've talked about, again, just in casual conversation, they don't blame other people. Yeah, I've always blamed myself, and even that's not right. I got a therapist, and I just poured all my thoughts and feelings out to her. What felt like a bunch of unrelated incidents, she was able to tie it all together. And it wasn't in a blame game way, but again, my interpretation, my hurt, and how I perceive things externally that threaten my wall of peace. That's an oxymoron, huh? Wall of peace. But I literally saw everything around me as threats to my sanity. I realized I hadn't let go of many things that happened to me and the hurt that I felt that I wasn't able to have expressed. I mean, if you feel like you are going to be laughed at with your feelings, you are not about to open up that can of worms. So you don't try with anyone. It was like the little kid was living in me and I was carrying all of that with me. And things were just stacking on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. My personal story with anxiety is why I started my life coaching services, specifically in career and mental health. Not only was I inspired by my own journey, but I can see all the various paths that I could have taken, as well as the ones I did. I've helped so many people in my personal circle and through my professional community that they keep coming back for a laugh, to cry, to express emotions free of judgment, but also get the real questions. That's the kicker. I don't have answers to your story, but I do have many questions. And through your answers, then we can put the pieces together. Frankly, my years in data analyst, which is a service-based career, by the way, I'm naturally inquisitive to understand what you say you want versus what you are actually asking for. I can't tell you how often I have had a client in my data career tell me what they wanted, and when I asked them what the steps they took to do that so that I can recreate it, they would stumble, and then they would realize that what they were saying they wanted wasn't even what they needed. If they could even tell me how. And that's okay. But it was a sobering moment where they were, more receptive to taking things step by step and analyzing the impact, effort, benefits, and the likelihood of occurrence. It's basically a risk assessment. But you can speak with me yourself. Book a discovery call at my website, movingwithmeaning.com, on the Life Coach Services page. Let's thrive in your career and flourish in your mind together. I want to say this. There is no one more that I want to impress than my mother. I was even afraid to be a mother because I thought I could not do the things she did with us with my own kids. I mean, she spent a lot of time with us, joking, laughing, cooking, and catering to our friends and stuff. Meanwhile, she was and still is dealing with her own issues. I commend her because I didn't take a lot of that into consideration. Not that I'm blaming myself for that, just making an observation. My mom has told me several times that she really loves me, and when I left for college, it hurt. It took time for me to really process that because I could only see my resentment from all of what I had presented above during my childhood. I had to heal myself first before the smoke cleared. That isn't to say that I'm inserting myself into helping my mom with her issues. I tried that, and let me say, I'm going to stay right here in a child's place. She will find her way, and I'll be there. Now, how we cope? Talking is a good first step. So, we had some golden nuggets, and I think we should add some ketchup just to recap. 1. Be patient with children and make communication constant. Acknowledge that they are doing a good job, as well as you are aware of the load they are carrying. 2. Therapy is great. Emphasis on that. Seek help the moment you feel down. You never know what may come of it. Best part is you can switch up if you are not feeling the compatibility. 3. Put yourself first by forgiving you. We are all human, and with that comes emotions, flaws, and good and bad decisions. Sometimes the hole we dig is deep, but we dug it, and we will make the climb out and then beyond. I want to end with a short monologue which touches on anxiety hereditary and how I use what I have experienced and learned with therapy to help my kids find their coping mechanisms. Anxiety has a hold on me. I cannot be happy. I cannot be sad. I cannot be frustrated or excited for fear of embarrassing those with me. You see there? I still put others first. And when I saw that others put themselves before me, I quickly donned the who cares mantra. But this is not something so easily discerned. I had to look at this as how I parent and absorb my own words of comfort. Quite simply, be available, be relatable, and be supportive. What hurts the most is the 3 people that saved my life have inherited this same struggle, my children. I see it in their eyes when I comfort them during their attacks, and it kills me to hear them say, I don't want to be like this. So I hold them tight and give them the advice that I repeat to myself every day. This is only a moment. One difficult day doesn't overshadow all the good ones. You are being molded to be someone special. You will teach, you will heal, you will counsel, you will discover, you will build. But most importantly, you will be ready. For what, they ask? For anything, baby. For anything. That's the episode today. Are you dealing with a form of anxiety? Have you identified the sources or experiences that make you anxious or nervous? Have you given therapy a try? And if not, why? Even if you have found your coping mechanisms to work and feel like you have addressed those deep down feelings and thoughts, drop a comment. I love it all, and so will someone else. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Meaning, the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. We're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82 and my Facebook page, Moving with Meaning. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. I have my YouTube channel up with tons of creative work, and watch for me on TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. Links are in the episode. Alrighty, I'm Krystal on Moving with Meaning, the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.